Hello, everybody. My name is Boris Trupcevic. I used to be the editor-in-chief of the biggest daily newspapers in Croatia. I'm unfortunately now the CEO, owning all the problems that we have. We used to define ourselves as a newspaper publisher. Today, that's no longer the case. Today, we like to think of ourselves as the digital publisher. I'm also well known in my market as the guy who frequently announces that television is about to die. So you can bring out your Rotten Tomatoes and throw it at me at some point. But jokes aside, 15 years ago, or for some even 20, everybody was saying that print is dead. Newspapers are dead. Well, I'm still here, and the newspapers are still alive, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you that eventually we're all gonna die. You're gonna die as well, and it's simply inevitable. But there might be a way to survive. Very honestly, newspaper industry, I think it is in the last stage of its retirement. And observing you guys as an outsider to your part of the media industry, I think that you're at the beginning of your retirement, observing all the trends, and I'll get into that. But before I do that, I got a nice discount for my new shoes yesterday here in Vilnius, so you can check it out. They have great sales. No, it's a joke. It's not the discount for my shoes. It's what we lost in the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, anybody in our market, in newspaper and print industry, lost 70% of sold circulation, 70% of readership, and 70% of advertising revenues. So could you imagine for a moment yourselves losing 70% of viewers or losing 70% of revenues gradually over the 10 years period? It's rather shocking, but yet, as I said, I'm here and I survived that. It's a dramatical change that we went through, and it was really not easy on the inside. Newspapers were an extraordinary business. We used to talk about ourselves as the ones having the license to print money, and then it was suddenly all gone. And the way it starts, and there's where I want you to pay attention, it really starts slow, very slow. It starts with a small single-digit percentages of decline. But once it starts to accelerate, that's when the shit hits the fan. And that's when you find yourself in a situation, oh my God, this is a clusterfuck. So I don't mean to spoil the party here, but guys, I urge you, please brace for impact, because the plane is coming down eventually. What I'll try to do also is to bring some parallels through to what we survived and what most probably you are going to go through in the coming decade. This was our world yesterday. Everybody was reading the newspapers, and this is our world today. It is also your world as well, because you all know about the second screen thing, and you all know about people switching to their mobile phones, especially in the commercial breaks, and that's what you live off. They all got these screens, and they're available all the time. Actually, in the US, there is on average 13 screens per household. 13, so way more screens than the average number of members per household. Now, I'll switch to you guys. I'll switch to how I see the TV disruption, and then I will wrap up with how we survived with our newspaper disruption in the past. Can somebody recognize these three guys? Anybody? So these three guys started a business back in 2005. Remember, it starts slow. And they sold their business after 1 year, that was in 2006, for $1.6 billion. And that was a big, big acquisition deal back then. In today's terms, $1.6 billion, it's like mid-size deal. It's not really significant. So these guys are the founders of YouTube. So they sold it for really nice amounts of money to Google. And after they sold it, what Google did with it, it didn't monetize. It continued to invest hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into further development of YouTube as a platform. So they were playing a long-term game, and with the amount of investment, they clearly showed how much they believed in online video. Today, they are the third largest website in the world, just after Google and Facebook. What they did, these guys, and later on Google, they changed media habits, and those habits being the closest to TV world for entire generations. What we did, we stood and observed or ignored. And what happened with the habits? All the research you can find, you will more or less get the same picture. And this picture shows us that those who grew up with YouTube, the millennials, they prefer to watch video over watching television. And that's not happening like a one-off effect. It's increasing and proven to be the case over time. Another research shows that millennials prefer YouTube nearly 2 times more than TV. So the likability and the affinity, it's with them. It's not with us or with you guys. At the same time, we can observe a gradual increase in online video advertising. Year by year, it's growing. This is in billions of dollars. And the predictions are that from 2018-19, it will accelerate. So it's the fastest growing advertising category in many markets. But this is when it really gets really bad. This is the age groups. So according to AGB data, you can see that TV is like kind of stable. It's maybe in some markets declining in total audience. But when you break it down to age groups, you see that in the old age groups, do you see these numbers? So people 50 plus, they consume more TV than they used to consume before. I don't know why, but they do it. So they became very addicted consumers. But ages from 12 to 49, they consume less and less and less. And over the course of 5 years, which is shown in this graph, you guys lost more than 40% of the youngest audience. So your audience of tomorrow. So these are the guys who will, in the next decade, be adults, 12 to 24, and also almost 30% in 25 to 34 age group. I'd say this is a really dramatical shift. And these guys, they are your future, or they might not be your future. They might be somebody else's future. Click. And this is my own specimen. Beware of the Generation Z. This is my daughter, Masha. She's 13. This is how she watches television. It's not television, but this is how she watches things. She even has this gadget holding the mobile phone connected to the bed. She watches television never. Like never, ever. Maybe sometimes when she turns on the YouTube on the smart TV, that's when she watches television as a device. But broadcast television does not exist in her life at all. And if it's not YouTube, then it's Netflix. Some more data clearly showing what's going on and what will be going on, although it is quite obvious. Back in 2000, only 3% of total media consumption worldwide was digital. Just 3%. That's when everybody started saying, you know, print is dead, and we were saying like, come on, look at the figures. Nobody uses the internet, you know, we're good. Well, we're not good. 3 years ago, it was 40% digital. I think today, it's more than 50% digital. And in your decade of retirement, this is going to happen. More than 80% of all media consumption will be digital in terms of will not be broadcast, will not be linear. It's a quite dramatical shift. Another prediction says that by 2019, 80%, or at least 80% of global internet consumption, data through pipes, will be video content. So 80% of everything which goes through data pipes will be video. It will grow unbelievably high and unbelievably fast. They predict that in 2019, any individual would need 5 million years to watch video content which is produced in only 1 month. So there's a huge growth in production, hyper-production, which is competing for the same amount of people, same amount of time. Think about competition. So the offer for the audience is increasing enormously. And there's the given audience, and this given audience has 24 hours a day, not a minute more. Another prediction from a mature market, UK. So UK and US are the reference markets to see where the world is heading, especially UK when we talk about digital. So they passed the 50% threshold years ago of money spent on internet or digital advertising. It is predicted that by 2022, 73% of total advertising spending will go to digital. And that said, that's the perspective about where your salaries will be coming from. That said, you need to remember that in the mature markets, in any market, Google and Facebook as a duopoly take 50%, and in the mature markets, it's already 60 to 70% of all the digital money in their pockets. So what we all will be fighting for is a smaller piece of pie, just to survive. It's a quite dramatical outlook of things. And it's what it is about. It's about TV money. So all the digital players, especially the global giants, they want growth. A vast number of mid-size and unlimited number of small-sized media ventures, they want growth as well. Everybody wants growth, but the money is limited. And the only place where there's still a lot of money to be taken is TV money. So there's $500 billion in the world spent on advertising each year. $200 billion is still on TV. And that's what everybody is after. That's where everybody wants to take the money. The TV money is the last remaining ocean for other people to grow. It gets worse than that. A recent poll showed that 86% of marketing professionals agree that TV advertising is no longer enough to capture user attention. 86% of marketeers see a problem and see that they need to do something about their investment. And the big guys, they're after you. The hunt has started a long time ago. I think we're now in the phase where the vultures are flying around and observing the prey before they finally get you. And remember, as I said before, it always starts very slow. It's it's called a low-end disruptor. So it's a low-end thing, statistically marginal, and you say, it's not significant, and I choose to ignore it. But once it's no longer statistically insignificant, it usually is too late for reaction, because as said, when it accelerates, it goes really, really, really fast. So who are the biggest guys after you? Yeah, the FANG Mafia. You very well know about the FANG Mafia. So what's happening there? It's that you will be facing a disruption of the big guys who are fighting each other at your expense, because their fight among themselves will accelerate the disruption. And you will be faced with a crowd of other smaller disruptors at the same time. So 2 years ago, in January 2016, Facebook announced people watch around 100 million hours of video a day on their platform. In February 2016, Google immediately responded and reminded their investors that YouTube audience watches hundreds of millions of hours of video every day. It didn't stop there. So Facebook, we all know, is a social media platform, but today they're more and more focusing on becoming also a video platform with Facebook Watch. YouTube was always a video platform, but those of you really using diligently YouTube will notice that it is increasingly becoming a social media platform and a tool for Google to overtake the game in social media from Facebook. So these are the guys who are after your TV money, and then there's these guys who are after your eyeballs as well. Netflix and Amazon. This is the amount of money, annual investment that they make in video content. So it's in billions of dollars. And this is all the data I just read yesterday or day before yesterday, that Amazon wants to surpass the spendings in production, in content production, and be bigger in content production than Netflix. So there's a huge, big fight. And even people my age, and I'm 42, my colleagues, all they talk about is what they were watching on Netflix. Even for them, the TV is no longer a relevant channel. It's even worse, sorry. So, there are also other signals, very clear signals. So Google invited advertisers to shift budgets on YouTube 3 years ago. This is what happened 3 years ago. They said very openly, we want to have 25% of TV money globally. They want to take a quarter of all of your money, for now. And they said it openly 3 years ago. They also said that if you want to reach younger audience, 16 to 34, it is optimum to invest 25% of money in YouTube. And for younger audiences, investing any money in TV, that's just a waste of money. They openly told that investing in you guys to reach younger audiences is just throwing the money out of the window. That's not all. There's something else they said 2 years ago. They went a step further. So they said that they are happy to announce that only on mobile, YouTube reaches more 18 to 49-year-olds than any network, broadcast or cable, in the US. In fact, they said that they reach more 18 to 49-year-olds during prime time than the top 10 TV shows combined. Now, if that doesn't prove that they're after your money, and your businesses, I don't know what else would. So they're quite vocal and quite open about what they want to do. And the way they do it, they use the TV language. Now, in these two occasions at Google headquarters in London, they were speaking to your advertisers in a TV language, intentionally. They didn't speak in impressions, this and that. They didn't use the new digital language of marketing. They used the old TV language because they wanted to be understood. They wanted to get close to the guys providing you with money. Do I hear silence? So what do you guys do? What I could observe is that many TV companies, big TV companies, decided to make a kind of strategic shift or move into the digital arena, not by investing in themselves or innovating internally, but rather acquiring all those sexy startups and young new generation of online media. Well, I don't think that's gonna cut it. The fact is that in most markets, TVs are not the prime news destinations in online world, nor they own the entertainment online. So buying this new age media, I think it's too small, because all these guys are not going to replace in any scenario the size and the volume of the businesses you currently have. And that's a mistake we did in the print business. We did buy a lot of smaller startups and assets, hoping that that's going to somehow magically change our destiny. Well, it didn't. We know that Disney is also trying to compete with a streaming service against Netflix, but that's not going to cut it as well. And the big problem for you guys is unbundling and decoupling. So a lot of you and most people here are with the news. So you think the news is the thing. I can tell you news is not the thing. We the news people, and that includes me, we wanted to believe, news is the most important. It isn't. 30% of money for US newspapers was in classifieds. And then the guy called Craig Newmark came and created the Craigslist website, and 30% of revenue of US newspapers was gone. Oh, it's classifieds. It doesn't have anything to do with the news. I could compare that with various soap shows and reality shows and the stuff you guys buy and broadcast. If somebody just takes it away, oh, there's a problem. So your product is being unbundled in the same way the newspaper product was unbundled. News was just one part of the product. There were classifieds, there was service information, a lot of information people could only get through newspapers. But then it got unbundled, you could get online, here, there, teletext. You just had a bundle separated into smaller pieces, and we were left with news, and we had to realize that the news news alone is a very, very difficult business. So what did we do? We realized at some point, we need to change dramatically from the inside, adapt to the new circumstances. We always thought of ourselves like we are digital first, we put a lot of focus on digital, and we did. But finally, we had to face the truth, and we said to ourselves, okay, if we don't do something really radical, we're going to die. And we set a completely new strategy, which we called digital only. And the point of this strategy is not to kill the newspapers, it's going to survive some more years, but the point was to fully focus on the digital. The point was to prepare ourselves for the future where there will not be any newspapers. So to be able to have a sustainable business model in that moment. So what we did in the past decades, we took in 50% of new people in our organization. So only half of the people is people we had, half we replaced with new people. Today, 1/3 of the people in our organization are working in jobs and job posts and have job descriptions that never existed before. 1/3, 33% of people are in jobs that were not there. And speaking of focus, how we radically reinvented the organization is 50% of the people currently are working primarily or only on digital. 30% roughly are both in print and digital, and only 20% are working in print. And still today, our profits still come more from the print than from digital. The bigger pie of revenues, because we have the end user revenues as well, come from print and digital. But yet we decided to do this really radical shift in the organization because things are moving fast. And this is not something you can do like you decide and it's done in 6 months or 1 year. This has to be done over many years. We had amazing results. In fact, we have bigger reach than ever before. So when we were just a newspaper with 10 years ago with a very nice website, we had 1.3 million reach in a country that had 4.4 million people, and only 100,000 was from the web, and 1.2 million was from the print, daily readers of print. Today, we evolved to a complete different picture. We have 2 million people in a country that is now reduced to roughly 4 million people because many people left the country after joining the EU. And 1.6 million is from digital, and only 400,000 readers is in print. So actually we grew our total brand reach, but learned that even with a higher reach than ever before, it is really difficult to have a sustainable business model. We had yet another great achievement. 70% of digital revenues today. So of all our advertising revenues, 70% is in digital, only 30% today is in print. But this 70% is really hard to get. We have had transactional sales models like you guys. Rather small sales teams selling bulks of inventory, negotiating, the classical transactional sale. It's not what we do today. We have like 5 different sales models today. We have more people in the sales department than ever before, most of those being digital, because the thing is bloody complex. You can't sell as you used to sell. The transactional model is basically gone. There's native advertising, there's video, there's promotional articles, there's CPC, CPM, direct sales, programmatic sales, partnerships. It's very, very, very tough and complex. Then we thought, what else to change? And we decided to change everything. Literally, the only thing that we did not change is the logo of our brand. Everything else was changed. We changed the way we work. This is just some of the sheets, reporting sheets we use on a daily basis. Just a smaller part of it. We use a lot of data, analyze and crunch a lot of data on a daily basis. And when I say we, it's like everybody. There is not a single person in the organization who is allowed not to be touched by data and reporting. Because if people don't understand the figures, what is going on with the content they produce, they cannot advance. We also had a number of other products next to the newspapers, like in the past, but we relaunched all of them. So Jumbus was cool before, Miss 7 was Budin before. They had different names, different identities. We relaunched every product we had, and we relaunched it with having in mind that these should be digital-only products. They do have their print extensions as well, but they are primarily digital products. Finally, with going through this really, really hard change process, we learned a lot, but before that, yeah, it really paid off. So we have great results, although it's still difficult. But we won like 70-something international awards for the work we do, for innovation, for native advertising, for our products, campaigns, whatever. DigiDay, World Association of Newspapers, INMA, Native Advertising Institute, wow, a whole lot of awards. We are very proud of those, but frankly, we use them as a marketing tool as well. Because in our market, everybody wants to work with the awarded people, because they have been internationally recognized as some people who know what they do. And there are lessons we learned on this way. First of all, that the biggest transformation is the people. All the people. So there is no transformation if you don't include all the people. And that's the hardest part of the job. You have to deal with their fears, you have to deal with people leaving, new people coming in. People work is the hardest part of everything. Second thing we learned, for those in the company, giving them the big picture, a very clear big picture. This is what we do, this is why we do it. Reason why is extremely important. Because if people don't understand why we change and what the change plan is, they will hardly relate to that, and all you will have is resistance. So you gotta give them the reason why and the big picture. Also, this has to be top-down. So there ain't no revolutionaries that will do the job. Unless the CEO of the company, and in our case, but also in your case, editor-in-chief or program director or whoever is on board, it's not going to happen. It has to be top-down. And not only ordered top-down, but these top people have to be involved on the daily basis. Because otherwise, it will get lost. It's not something anybody can delegate to a so-called chief digital officer. Chief digital officers are one of the stupidest things I've seen in digital transformation. Because what chief digital officer means in translation is the CEO and his top management team, they don't want to do the work, and so they delegate the work to somebody, and that somebody statistically in 99% of the cases fails to do so because he doesn't have the real power and the real commitment and involvement of the top of the company. That said, you are either all in or you're not in at all. And make no mistake about it. If you're not completely in to do it, you're not in. We were telling to ourselves, you know, we are digital first, we're the front runners, we're the innovators in the market, and we were. But that's not going to cut it. It's not enough. So you're either fully committed to do it, or you might as well just give it up. And finally, it's not easy. It's actually very hard. So you should be prepared for many, many problems and challenges. And we had so many problems we couldn't even imagine what will happen, because once you start going down this road, you discover things and you bump into things, and you have to do that with an attitude, yeah, whatever comes along, I will solve it. So guys, that's about it. There's some questions. Yeah.
I mean,
I've got one question before someone else. Ruba. Okay, my question is, which 50% of the people did you fire?
Okay, so that's a statistic over the last decade. In all the departments. So the most dramatical change was in sales and marketing. There we increased the number of people in both departments, and there we have 75% of people or 80% of people who are primarily doing the digital work. These are new people. And yes, we had to get rid of a lot of people in sales and marketing because the print people there would not adapt. A little bit less is in the editorial, but there was a significant change as well. But it's not that it happened overnight, like you decide and now half the people is gone tomorrow and new people come in. It's something you need to do gradually.
Ruba, Al Arabiya.
I mean, I have several points. I thought it was very interesting, but Adrian, as you mentioned, this is not provocative. This is suicidal, actually. So had I been an investor, and I mean, I was sitting here, I would definitely pull out all of my money from such an investment. But you said you relaunched all of your services and publications, and you told us at the beginning it's minus 70, the percentage of your audience and that you lost. Mm-hmm. How much did you regain after the relaunch and everything? Did it pay back significantly in terms of numbers?
Okay, so in print we lost 70% of whatever, of everything. In parallel we grew in digital, and in terms of readership and audience and reach, we grew over what we had before. So we have the biggest reach ever. In terms of money, we have buyers of newspapers. That money, when it's gone, it's gone. We don't have a digital subscription. But in advertising, after years and years of decline, in the past 2 years, we are finally growing in total advertising revenue.
Which is fine, because you need to change the mediums of delivery, because eventually we used to identify ourselves as broadcasters.
Yeah.
Now we say we're content providers. Content providers across all platforms. So the thing is that we changed the mediums that we used to provide purely TV. Now we do digital and all that stuff. And sometimes I don't think it's fair to compare us to YouTube or other platforms, because mainly the consumption of TV channels is mainly conventional at homes when you relax and stuff, while when you want to watch, and they still watch us, on your train, even when you're taking a shower, I don't know, when you're taking a bath, when you're traveling, airport, waiting in a doctor's clinic. This is when you consume those digital media, and still part of it is for us. We have YouTube channels, so we still make partially. I mean, it's not as gloomy as you made it sound. I mean, we need to look forward to things and to change the mechanisms and the way we operate. We need to tweak it the way you did tweak it, and you regain.
It's not that simple. What I want to warn you about, we in the newspaper industry, we thought like, but we're just changing platforms, it's easy. So we are now analog, and we will become digital, and we will just translate the business and the business model to the digital world. That's not going to happen. That's my point. You are being unbundled by substitutions. So you're not going to just transfer what you do now to the new world, because it's a completely different world, completely different environment, and completely radically different competitive landscape. So, yeah, but you have to adapt in an evolving kind of way. You will not just shift from, oh, now I'm standing here, stand here, and that everything is okay. It's not. It's really not that simple. And the key word maybe is substitution, because yeah, you have a channel on YouTube, but you don't have YouTube. You are being substituted in many different ways on many different platforms, with the competition higher than ever. And substitution is something you should be thinking about. Yes, you are redefining yourself as content providers, but the bad news is that there's an explosion of other content providers. So there's more content provided than ever before, and it's exponentially growing. And there you have global players investing in global content, and they want to have a relationship with the audience directly without you in their equation. So it's rather complicated, but translating to the new world, that's not going to happen. It's not possible.
Okay, we have time for one more question, because otherwise we're going to run out of time. Evania.
I have two questions. One is, do you think a cross-platform of TV stations in the world will be big enough to compete against Netflix and Amazon, or against the biggest players? Because as we see now, each kind of broadcasters or group of broadcasters are trying to fight themselves, the big monsters. And actually, because all of us or all of you guys are competitors to each other, but it's completely different things, right? Broadcasters to Netflix or to Amazon. So do you believe in a kind of union against the big monsters would work, or what is your solution? What do you think it will happen?
Yeah, okay. That's something that was considered for newspapers, and then newspaper world failed to make any kind of significant alliance or coalition to fight the big guys. There is two things I think we should notice here. So Netflix has more subscribers in the United States than all the cable TV companies combined. So already they're enormous. That's only US. And unlike any cable company in the US, they started operating globally, at a global scale. The problem you have, and I have as well, you're competing against a global giant and monster who's doing things globally, and you are confined to your local national market. You can never get the size. So it's a David and Goliath kind of thing. I don't know if that answers your question. But if should you make a coalition in some way to create a joint platform.
Super ENEX, yes,
yeah.
All platforms, the whole world. We create only one platform for everyone. Cariflix, we can make it worldwide, and then everybody is there in their little local little markets, but worldwide. Because if each one fights, that's what my impression is, that each one fights from their own local region, as you said. So it's impossible to fight with the global one. So only if there is a global possibility which is transformed into you are able to choose. But on TV, on content provided by broadcasters, might be an option. I'm not sure if that would work. Is it transformed, but the united, because each one now fights, not fights, is their competitors. Each TV broadcaster is competitor against each other. But at the same time, you have someone else who are not broadcasters, but actually they're worldwide. So I don't know.
In your place, I would not exclude any of the strategic options. I think that it is wise to explore all possible options, because the way we regain success in our business is through way more complex business operation than we had before. So you will have to find many solutions. There's not one silver bullet, not a chance. And what I would recommend is looking at your business in 10 years' time with the assumption that you lost 70% of everything. And then think about, okay, what is left? And how do I build back from that point? Because what was really the enemy for newspapers was defensive thinking. Year by year, it was defensive thinking and defensive measures which eliminated any kind of strategic initiative, and along with that, short-term thinking. So once you get into this spiral of short-term thinking and defensiveness, etc., you're done. And they keep on growing and growing and growing, and you keep on being weaker and weaker. So I think for you guys, now's the time to think, you know, most probably we will gonna lose 70% of everything in 10 years' time. What's left? And how do we manage that? How do we manage that decline in certain areas, in our core area, and try to build, as we go, something new?
You've delivered on the brief of being provocative. Thank you very much indeed, Boris. Thank you for Stryia Media. Thank you.